Hello and welcome to this very exciting presentation, an introduction to mind designs, which are the keys to thinking, language, and literacy. What we're going to talk about today is how we visualize thinking. What does it look like when we think different ways inside our brains? What should our brain be doing when we are sequencing or comparing or brainstorming, right? And that's a really difficult question to answer, especially if we're students, especially if we're learning English, especially if the content is tricky. So these mind designs are ways for us to help visualize our thinking and really help answer the question, what does thinking look like? Right? What goes on in our brains when we go through the different thought processes to ultimately learn the information? So here's a fun little comic. I know it's kind of blurry. It's an old comic, and this is the best version available of it. But the text at the bottom says, "Good work, but I think we might need just a little more detail right here." And I really thought this applied so well to thinking in the sense that there are all these complex pieces and connections that we teach or we talk through or we read. And then there's this miracle, right? The thinking that happens where the learning happens, where students understand the content. That is so tricky to figure out. How do we get students from the complex information to the actual learning, right? To that output of learning. And that's the miracle. And that's also where the mind designs really come in and help demystify what happens in that part of the process. One other way to think about it is successful learning doesn't look like a straight line. There are detours and different connections made and things that are confusing that we have to circle back to and figure out again. And so learning looks a lot like that line on the right. It's still gets where we need to go, but it's squiggly, it circles back on itself. It definitely doesn't follow a straight line. And so this really helps us understand the depth and complexity of thinking. So I'd like to ask you, how many thought processes are there? How many ways can our brain think? And the answer is 9. We can brainstorm, we can describe, we can classify or sort and organize, we can compare, we can sequence, show cause, we can show effect, we can construct, we can deconstruct, and then lastly, we can show connections. So all of these are thought processes that our brains are capable of doing, that we actually think through multiple times, if not hundreds or thousands of times in a day, and they are really important in the academic learning world. Actually, all of the questions that students are asked will fall into one or maybe more of these different thought processes. So what we have done at Writing with Design is we've attached a visual. That's why you see the different images attached to each of these thought processes to help students see their thinking. What does my brain need to be doing when I'm asked to brainstorm versus when I'm asked to show effect? How can I visualize? How can I see that information differently? So we're going to put it all into practice today with a topic that I think we all can agree on is fun to study, and that's chocolate in a cup, otherwise known as hot chocolate. So here's our article, Chocolate in a Cup. And this is, of course, just one out of any of the articles that exist in the world that I could have pulled for us to write about. So that's a critical piece to remember, is that this is very much just demonstrating these different mind designs. They can be applied across the board, no matter what students are needing to read. So here we go, chocolate in a cup. What's warm, brown, and warms you up on a cold day? If you answered hot chocolate, you're right. People have been drinking types of hot chocolate for thousands of years. Historians, people who study history, believe the first people to make it lived in Mexico more than 3,000 years ago. They didn't drink it hot like people do today. They drank it warm. Plus, hot chocolate wasn't very sweet like it is today. As people in other parts of the world learned of this drink, they began to add things like cinnamon and sugar to make it sweeter. Over the years, more and more people started drinking hot chocolate. In 1824, a Dutch chemist, a person trained in the science of chemistry, invented cocoa powder. This made it easier for even more people to enjoy the drink. Soldiers drank it in war, explorers took it to the South Pole. Today, people all over the world drink this sweet treat. Now, there are three questions down below, but what I would like to focus is going through each of the mind designs. We actually will address the thought processes in each of these questions as we go through them. So I'll probably come back to this slide later on, but I'd like to dive right into our different designs just to show you that how powerful they are at processing this information and make connections to them when they tie into to our questions. So our first one is the brainstorming design. And this is the one that is kind of our starter design. It's just getting students to tell us, what do you know about this? What do you recall from the article? What did you learn from reading this? So you can see all of these questions here over on the right that are really helpful for students to think through. And you're seeing on the poster on the right where it has describe, discuss, define, explore. All of these are key words that you can start to share with your children to make sure that they know when they see these words, this is a great design for them to do. If they are going to think about describing, if they're going to think about exploring or highlighting or listing, then they want to brainstorm. And then down at the bottom with the show, if they are asked to show ideas or tell everything they know or the qualities of something, then that also is cluing them into using the brainstorming design. You really can't mess this design up, right? You just put a topic in the middle, you put bubbles around it, and you put down information that you know. So it's an easy one to draw, and it's an easy one just to get us going. So that's what I'd like you to do on a sheet of paper is just write the topic in the middle of a piece of paper and draw a box around it. And then what we're going to do is just draw some lines out, and that just gets our brain thinking. And ultimately, it's going to look like this. We'll put a bubble for each of the ideas that we want. So I'm going to just duplicate this slide and make this for us. So what did we read about? Well, we read about hot chocolate. Okay, and what are some of the things that we recall from the article? Well, we could say people have been drinking it for 3,000 years. And that actually also helped me remember that it first was enjoyed in Mexico. Right? And of course, we can always go back to the article to look at oh, this was a great description. Warm brown warms you up on a cold day. I'm going to put quotation marks around this and resize this so we've got it. So you see, I'm just kind of pulling in some key information. I love to teach, no matter the age of students, to pull in some direct quotations. And anytime you do that, anytime it's directly from the text, you just put the quotation marks around it so you remember exactly what it was. I think it is interesting too, just to get a couple more key things about this, that it was more than 3,000 years ago. I need to fix that. And that it was first enjoyed warm, and then people started adding more to it. So let's go back over here for over 3,000 years. Okay. So I think another detail could be that it was first enjoyed warm by Mexicans. And then throughout history, people added more to the drink, including sugar and cinnamon. And then I think one neat thing too, towards the end of it, was about that in 1824, cocoa powder was developed. All right, I'm going to move this one up a little bit, bring my line with it. And that way we can make this one a little bit bigger. So of course, if you're doing this on paper, this wouldn't be an issue. But since I'm doing it online, just to show you how I'm going to resize it. In 1824, cocoa powder was developed. And this really led to many people enjoying HC, hot chocolate. Right? because the article goes into talking about soldiers and explorers and then people still enjoying it today. So what I want you to think about is if a student turned this in or your child created this when they needed to process an article, would you think they understood it? Yeah, definitely, right? This is a lot of the key information from the article. And so that's why the brainstorming design is so powerful. It is what we do when we don't want to stare at a blank sheet of paper. We put a topic in the middle, we draw some lines out, and then we just start to put some ideas down. We're not worried about complete sentences. We're certainly not worried about spelling. What we're doing here is just getting our ideas down. Okay? The next design is a classifying design, and this is one of my favorites. There's lots of great questions over here on the right, and several of them are for after the brainstorming design. This fits really well that if you do a brainstorming design, you can launch into a classifying design and start to organize the information. So how can the information be sorted? Do you see groups of information? How can you organize your bubbles into categories? And then you can see the two visuals here, both a top-down and a left-right organization of a topic being branched into categories and then into details. Look at all these great think words. If students are being asked to categorize or organize or group or sort, those are all words that are very indicative of using a classifying design, or the show words of do you need to make branches? Do you need to talk about a main idea in details? Is there some type of taxonomy or hierarchy to the information? This classifying design is incredibly helpful for that. So we can take a look at our design here and see if we see any kind of categories about it. I feel like as I look here, we've got about Mexico. I think that could be interesting as kind of a one kind of category of information about how it was first enjoyed in Mexico and it was warm. Then we've got a lot about the history here that people have been drinking it for over 3,000 years. Maybe we make a category of all the different people who have enjoyed hot cocoa. Maybe we even have a category that's about descriptors of it, right? And we can use both the article and the picture that's there in terms of what has been added. So that's one neat or one powerful way of using this. So I'm going to go ahead and put hot chocolate up here. And again, I can kind of just say like the history of hot chocolate, um, descriptors. I'll just say a description of hot chocolate. And maybe that's all I need. Maybe I just need two branches. So the classifying design can have anywhere from 2 to an infinite number of branches. So don't feel like you need to always have 3. That's just what I have as the visual here. But if I look back at this brainstorming design of what we have, I could certainly pull over this information that it was enjoyed, it's been enjoyed for over 3,000 years. I think another key piece to that is that it was first enjoyed in Mexico. And then also that I think this is very important, the 1824 information. So I can pull that in underneath here. Let's get our box resized so we can see it all, maybe. There we go. Let's see, description of hot chocolate by first drinkers. And then we'll say current day hot chocolate, description of current day hot chocolate. How about that? I feel like there was a lot of information on both of that. So we can say here it was we have first enjoyed twice, but I'm going to go with it for now because I'm just getting my ideas down. First enjoyed by Mexicans, first enjoyed warm, that's what we said, warm by Mexicans. not sweet, right? That was something else. I didn't have that on the brainstorming design, but I do recall that from the article. Let's go back and take a look. People have been drinking types of hot chocolate for thousands of years. Historians believe the first people to make it lived in Mexico more than 3,000 years ago. Or maybe we should say people who lived in Mexico because 3,000 years ago it's not an official country, right? They didn't drink it hot like people do today. They drank it warm, plus hot chocolate wasn't very sweet. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's make a couple. First enjoyed warm by people who lived in what is now Mexico. And then we can say not sweet. Okay. Description of current day hot chocolate. It is usually very sugary, sugary sweet, topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, marshmallows. Sometimes it's made with water or milk. Now, this is a little bit more than what was technically in the article, but there was a little bit there, and I'm just thinking through and I'm making connections to what I know about hot chocolate. So that's okay to pull in as long as I know that I'm coming up with that on my own. And I think one more thing that needs to go over here. So I'm going to resize this just in terms of our font size. I want to just say that it's continued to kind of be enjoyed by a lot of people over the course of history. This is soldiers, explorers, and now enjoyed all over the world. Okay, so look at how nicely this organizes and sorts our information. So, this is a wonderful design to just get information classified and organized. What's really neat is I now kind of have 3 different topics that I could turn into paragraphs or even a couple sentences to write an informational summary of this information. So the classifying design helps us just get kind of these main ideas and the details that follow underneath it. It's one of my favorites. Okay, our next design is the comparing design, and this one takes a look at how something is similar and different to something else. So look at all your think words here to compare. Sometimes people say contrast to compare and contrast, or sometimes they just say to compare. So that actually means to tell the similarities and differences. But maybe they want to evaluate or distinguish between. And then certainly if we see any of these keywords of similarities or differences, that's going to clue us into this. So if we go back up here to chocolate in a cup, that pops out in this question number 2. How is hot chocolate today different from hot chocolate that people in Mexico drank many years ago? So let's do that. Let's compare. Let's talk about hot chocolate present day. And we can say hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago. Okay, so this question in particular asks us to compare, but this is not the only time that you can compare. Anytime you want to talk about how something is similar and different, this is your design. And what we're doing here, let's go back to just the visual of it. I just put in the 2 topics, and then my similarities are going to come up in the middle. Doesn't matter if it's above or below, it could be right here in the middle, wherever I have space. And then my differences go around the outside. And this helps our brain realize that a similarity is connected between the 2, and a difference is just related to whichever one it is touching. Okay. So similarity, well, it's enjoyed by those who drink it. But hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago, it was warm in temperature. So that brings me to something that I'd like to clarify is that I initially just had this in my head. It's warm, right? All of our brains do that. We just think in simple, single words a lot of the time, and that's really okay. I want to challenge you to not put that down on this design ever, on any of the design, to no single words, because when you challenge yourself to come up with a phrase, then you've got so much more to go with when you turn it into writing, or when you take it off and you just talk it through with a discussion group. So warm in temperature is a great difference to kind of classify, or to put on this design here. So they're enjoyed by those who drink it. Hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago was drank warm in temperature. Hot chocolate today is usually steaming hot, right? So this is where we do have to have some information or experience with hot chocolate to be able to tell more. There's not exactly that in here where it says that it is served super hot. It just says that it wasn't, they don't, oh, sorry, they do, sorry, here. They didn't drink it hot like people do today. Perfect, we've got that. Then they drank it warm. Plus hot chocolate wasn't very sweet like it is today. Okay, so we have steaming hot. We also know that hot chocolate from today is sugary sweet. And you might be thinking, hey, we just wrote this on this classifying design. We sure did. We could take this information. You could actually, if you made this on paper, you could cut this out and move it over to the different design. So you don't have to rewrite. It's certainly easy to retype something. So I'm going to, or even to copy and paste, right? So I'm going to go ahead and grab these since I know all of this great information about it. We came up with all of that. I'm just going to paste it here so that this can go a little bit faster. And then I'm going to just make two more differences. And we'll put made with water or milk. And topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, marshmallows, and probably some other great toppings that you all could discuss and add. So notice they're all over here on the side off of the hot chocolate from today. And then I just need to make sure I've got my connecting lines. So let's do that. Okay, it's going to be a little bit thinner for now, but we're going to go with it. Actually, let's just fix that. There we go. All right, and then let's just connect these. So just make sure that as you make your design, you have your lines going from the topic out to each of the differences that it's related to. So back over to hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago, it was warm in temperature. Something else that we want to say, we don't want to say it was not sweet, right? We don't want sugary sweet and not sweet. We can just leave that off. We can just say that today's is sugary sweet, and that's going to help us not get into this pattern of this is this is not, this is this is not. So yeah, I think this looks good. Maybe I take off sugary sweet and leave this over here, because I do want to have two over here. Just thinking this through in live time so you can see that this is what thinking looks like. It is that squiggly line, right? If we said not sweet, sugary sweet, I don't want to do a not. Warm in temperature. Hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago was warm in temperature. And that's what they said too. Wasn't very sweet. We could say that wasn't very sweet. That's a little bit of a different way of putting it. Okay. Or how about was mildly sweet? There we go. So grapple with it. Don't let this be something easy and fast. Thinking takes time. It makes our brain work, and that's good. We want that to be happening. That means that we're learning. So now notice we've got this great comparing design where we've got a similarity in the middle, enjoyed by those who drink it, and then we've got all these wonderful related differences. So we're talking about that it's steaming hot, it's sugary sweet, made with milk or water, and topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, and marshmallows in terms of hot chocolate today. And then we could say how hot chocolate was from 3,000 years ago. I think also we could make an inference that it's made from, well, we know for today that it's made from a powdered form, right? You could even say made from cocoa powder. Oh, we could add it to this one. So made by mixing, there we go. Made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. Perfect. Okay. So we can tell a lot more about hot chocolate from today because we have a lot more experience with that. The article had some information about hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago, but not that much. So when we think about answering this question, how is hot chocolate today different from hot chocolate that people in Mexico drank many years ago? We can think about how we could write that. You can say hot chocolate today is a sugary, sweet drink that is usually topped with, look at my text all on the screen for us. See where I'm going with this? Usually topped with, I'll just grab these. Okay, let's shrink this down so we can not run off the page. There we go. I love to bring in transitional words, so I'm going to do something like no, actually, I don't think it goes here yet. So hot chocolate today is a sugary sweet drink that is usually topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, and marshmallows. It is served steaming hot. But then I wouldn't want to say it's made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. I think that goes before that last one. So I'm going to say it is made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. It is served steaming hot. Hot chocolate today is a sugary sweet drink that is usually topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, and marshmallows. It is made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. It is served steaming hot. I could say also it is served steaming hot. Or I could turn that into a difference, right? If I said, unlike, yes, let's do that. Unlike hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago, hot chocolate today is served steaming hot. There we go. That's a great transition. Oh, and I could come back up here to bring in about the mildly sweet. So hot chocolate today is a sugary sweet drink that is usually topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, and marshmallows. The hot chocolate that was drank 3,000 years ago was only mildly sweet. Today's hot chocolate is made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. Unlike hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago, hot chocolate today is served steaming hot. There we go. I think that gets it. We could, one similarity certainly is that they're both enjoyed. We could just say, regardless of the year or moment in history. How about that? This is a drink people love. Perfect. Let's listen to it, make sure we are clear, but we've got this great comparison to answer that question. How does hot chocolate today differ from hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago? Hot chocolate today is a sugary, sweet drink that is usually topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, and marshmallows. Maybe or. And or. The hot chocolate that was drank 3,000 years ago, that was I think drank 3,000 years ago was only mildly sweet. Today's hot chocolate is made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. Unlike hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago, hot chocolate today is served steaming hot. Oh, actually, we could combine that. Steaming hot and is made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. Ooh, let's do that. There we go. Now it's going to flow even better. And we make those nice long sentences. Not every sentence needs to be super long, but I think now we've got a really nice flow. Hot chocolate today is a sugary sweet drink that is usually topped with cinnamon, whipped cream, and or marshmallows. The hot chocolate that was drank 3,000 years ago was only mildly sweet. Unlike hot chocolate from 3,000 years ago, hot chocolate today is served steaming hot and is made by mixing cocoa powder with water or milk. Regardless of the moment in history, this is a drink people love. Good. Now, the only thing is we've got this 3,000 years ago that repeats twice here from a long time ago. Maybe we could say that. Oops, got it twice. Okay, so notice how, yes, there's refinement, yes, there's revision, and I wish I could mark it out and do it around it because I don't like to just erase. I really love to show the progress, but you got to watch that in real time. And what this is showing is just the power of using the designs to help come up with the sentences that we want to write. If we had just started writing, there's no way that we would have had all of these connections in our brains and now to better kind of understand this information. So that's the beauty of these and the miracle and the magic of these designs is that it keeps us thinking on the concepts. It makes us make connections. It lets our brain neurons fire and wire together and make learning happen in our brain by seeing how things are connected or how things can be rearranged or put together, and then we can turn it into sentences. I love to say that writing is thinking on paper, and so this is really showing that we really understand the content. Okay. The next design is sequencing, and this one is pretty straightforward in terms of what we are wanting to see, that we organize in terms of putting in order or ranking content or concepts, if we have to show steps or processes. And so for this one, if we think about back to our article, we have a fairly general timeline, and we kind of even outlined that right here. So kudos to us. We were already kind of thinking this way. So we can grab this and come over here and plop this in and then put it into our boxes. So I'm going to start here though. First, hot chocolate enjoyed in Mexico over 3,000 years ago. This is a really big jump, and I think this article, this is one limitation of it, right? It really jumps from 3,000 years ago to in 1824, cocoa powder was developed. So that's definitely something that we could fill in some boxes if we wanted to do some additional research. We'll go with what's just in the article to say that even though it's got some gaps, there's definitely still some sequence here. Then it was soldiers and explorers that drank it, enjoyed it, and then now it's really enjoyed all over the world. Okay. So I am not going to worry too much about the formatting of these boxes, but just to show you that it's not about how beautiful it looks. It's really about getting the content down and helping this flow. So we pretty much could turn each of these into a sentence and have a 4-sentence sequence of how hot chocolate was enjoyed. That first, this drink was enjoyed in Mexico over 3,000 years ago. Fast forwarding almost 3,000 years. In 1824, cocoa powder was developed, and this led to many more people being able to enjoy hot chocolate. Some of those people who enjoyed it were soldiers who were fighting in war, or even explorers who traveled all the way to the South Pole. This was a drink that people enjoyed, especially when it was cold. And now it has continued to grow in popularity, and it's a drink that is enjoyed all over the world. So in this case, we didn't even write anything. We just talked it off the design. We call this writing out loud, having our sentences sound more put together, more organized. And this is a wonderful way to help students learn how to do that. Make the designs and then talk it off the design. You don't have to take it to writing every single time. Talking it makes a whole lot of powerful connections happen, just like the writing does. So constructing design, this is putting something together, to construct, to build to a whole. We want to go parts to whole on this. So notice we've got all the subparts coming and then into parts and parts coming into the topic. So this is one way, especially if we're taking all the parts to explain and then showing what it builds. But the other, and this is the other version of the design, so we can go from the top down or we can go from the left to the right. And then the deconstructing design is going from the topic and breaking it down into the parts. So it's the same kind of end result in terms of going from parts to a whole, but we're just deciding if we're starting with the whole and breaking it down, or we're going from the parts and building. In this case, we could certainly build our dream hot chocolate drink, right? What are the parts of the hot chocolate that we would love to enjoy right now? And then our last one that, actually we have two more. The causal reasoning design, when we're focusing on causes, this is when we need to explain or predict or hypothesize. Those are all thinking words that can help us know we need to focus on causes. And certainly these words down here, anytime we see cause or why or reasons or purposes or roots or motivations, that's all getting into this causal reasoning from the causes side. So look at these great questions. Why did blank happen? What are the causes of blank? Explain how blank occurred. And so we could, let's go back to our questions because there was a why question. Why do you think cocoa powder made hot chocolate easier for more people to drink? Well, that article doesn't exactly share that. It just says that it made it easier. So this might need require us to have some additional research that we go and do, but we can also use our background knowledge in this case. So I'm going to basically think of this moment or this event in this design like a headline. So I'm going to say the invention of cocoa powder made hot chocolate. What was the question again? I don't want to repeat it exactly. Made it easier for people to drink. Okay. Made hot chocolate more easily enjoyable. Okay, so kind of want that to sound like a newspaper headline. And then down here, we want to think about why. Why would it do that? Well, I don't know enough about how it was made before, but I imagine it wasn't as easy as cocoa powder. So when I think about making hot chocolate, it's so simple to just dump the powder into a cup. It simplified the process of making the drink. Also, it dissolves easily and fully. Oh, and quickly. So dissolves easily, quickly, and fully. All right, so no like little chunks of chocolate, right? And then I may not need this third one. I might need 6 more for another question, right? So there's not a right or wrong here. But what we'll do is just kind of articulate this into a writing sample here. So we could say, oops, there, it's going to go there. Okay. The invention of cocoa powder made hot chocolate more enjoyable. Let's take out the easily. More enjoyable. Okay. And I'm going to add in 1824, made hot chocolate more enjoyable. And I'm just going to keep going with because it simplified the process of making the drink. Cocoa powder dissolves easily, quickly, and fully in hot water or milk. Oh, one more is that it's easy to travel with, right? Easy to travel with. I think that's another important reason. So I'm going to add in like additionally, uh, having cocoa in powder form made it easy to travel with and enjoy anytime. Perfect. There is our answer. I'm going to just shrink it so it fits a little bit better on the page and then read it just to make sure. That's one thing that we want all students to do is not just say, oh, there, I'm done. I wrote, I'm finished. Go back and read it. We need to make sure that it flows. The invention of cocoa powder in 1824 made hot chocolate more enjoyable because it simplified the process of making the drink. Cocoa powder dissolves easily, quickly, and fully in hot water or milk. Additionally, having cocoa in powder form made it easy to travel with and enjoy anytime. Good. Now I do switch verb tense. That's one thing. I'm going to go ahead and put this in past tense. Cocoa powder dissolved easily, quickly, and fully in hot water or milk. Okay, there we go. Okay. Last one. Well, this is the causal reasoning one. It's on the effects. We could certainly talk about that. And sometimes causes feel like effects and effects feel like causes, but this is just a way for you to kind of isolate if you're wanting to think about the effects, the results, the consequences. Sometimes though, those are somehow tied to the why as well. So these designs are related, but we do like to separate them out to really have that causal reasoning side, whether we're looking at the causes or the effects of it. The last one is the connecting design, and this is all about seeing parallels or connections, finding something that matches or some kind of correlation. And so this is one that we just kind of have some samples or not samples, some connections that we want to make within the content. So for example, we could say that soldiers drank it in war, just like explorers took it to the South Pole, just like people today just drink it all over the world, just like people in Mexico drink it. We don't really know why, but we can, again, do some additional research here. So we could start with soldiers. Okay, so that's how this design is built. We have to have let's go back to the design and talk about it for a second. We have to have the two things that we want to have connections to go here in A1 and A2. And this is what we call a connecting link. It's what do you say between A1 to A2 to make it into a sentence. And then we find that parallel connection with B and C and so on. So this is really, this is very much like analogies. That's why that word is down here. So if you are familiar with those, like hot is to cold, as black is to what, then that's what we're doing here. We're just on a more sophisticated level here. So soldiers drank hot chocolate. It said during wartime. Just like explorers, and this is going to repeat every time, drank hot chocolate while exploring cold places, such as the South Pole. Just like people in, I don't know how I would finish this one. People in Mexico drank hot chocolate. And I'm going to actually say, I don't know. I need to do further research, right? And that's true. I don't know why they drank it. Was it for medicinal purposes? Was it just for enjoyment? So I can go back and do some additional research on this. And that also might actually help me answer this question better too, about why do I think the invention of cocoa powder made it more easy to enjoy? I might need to learn what was the process like 3,000 years ago or before cocoa powder was developed. So that's one neat thing too, is that the designs are going to help show where there are gaps or limitations in the content that's being studied. And that's where students can go do further research, where teachers and families can get excited and say, oh, let's go figure that out. We don't know the answer to that. We don't know it in our heads. It wasn't in the article. Let's go figure it out. Let's keep learning. Let's keep deepening our understanding. understanding, that's going certainly above and beyond just skimming through the content, highlighting a few keywords, answering the sentences in a phrase or two, and moving on. Right? We've really delved into to all the thought processes that are applicable here. And let's just make sure we've answered these questions. I know we did 2 and 3, but let's go back to 1. True or false, hot chocolate was first made 100 years ago? Oh, we know this one for sure. We've got 2 places we could go, actually 3, right? We had it here. We also had it here in our timeline. And sorry, not in our timeline, in our classifying design, where we kind of inadvertently did a timeline, and then we certainly had it out in our timeline. So we could absolutely come back to this question and answer it with all of that content that we have in our designs. And that just shows the power of doing these designs, not necessarily to answer the questions, but to understand the content to then be able to answer the questions with such a sense of comprehension and confidence. All right. So what I want to leave you with is just some questions to think through, that how can the Mind Designs help students see their thinking and learning? Right? It's amazing how when we take the words from the article and we put it into these different designs, the way that we talk about it, the way that we can see it all connected, knowing what the lines and the bubbles and the boxes and the arrows represent, it allows our brains to fully learn and comprehend the information. Language and literacy is cultivated throughout the Mind Designs because of the way that we are rereading the article, going back to different sections, the way that we're talking through the language, thinking of other ways to say it so we don't copy directly from the text. Also, layering thought processes, going from brainstorming into classifying it, into sequencing it, into comparing it. All of that is really what higher level thinking skills are all about. It's a layering of the different thought processes. And why is thinking more deeply on a single topic more powerful than thinking only one way on several different topics? Well, that gets to the idea of quality over quantity. We would much rather have students stay with an article, stay with something that they're learning about for longer and go deeper with all these different thought processes to really cultivate their understanding of it before just saying, okay, on this one, you're just going to brainstorm, and on this one, you're just going to compare. That doesn't have as much richness as staying with a topic, really helping them learn the language and go deeper with all the different thought processes. So with that, I thank you for joining in on this presentation about Mind Designs. Use them in any content that you are reading or studying with discussions, as you're wanting to comprehend text, as you're wanting to plan a piece of writing. These designs are something that we hope you will use day in and day out, multiple times. Anytime students are learning, they should be making Mind Designs.